Good morning and welcome back to the Closers Inner Circle podcast with Denise Griffitts and Ben Gay III. Today we're talking about mentorship. Mentorship is one of the most powerful forces in business and in life, and particularly in sales. But not every mentorship works. And this is a topic that Ben and I discuss frequently, both on and off the air. Now, Ben was mentored personally by Dr. Napoleon Hill, the author of Think and Grow Rich. And he has carried those lessons throughout his extraordinary sales career. The wisdom that he absorbed wasn't just theory, it was lived, tested, and applied in the real world of sales, leadership, and business building. And our podcast today is sponsored by David L. Brown. David has been a longtime supporter of the Closers Inner Circle podcast and Your Partner in Success Radio. And he is a valued friend behind the scenes. Excuse me. He's a true advocate for meaningful conversations rooted in integrity, service, and purpose-driven entrepreneurship. His steady encouragement and unwavering belief, and I do mean unwavering belief in doing business the right way, have made lasting impacts on this show and its mission and everybody that I know that has ever had the privilege of working with David. You can connect with him at D. Brown Company, David D. Brown Company.com, and on LinkedIn and across other social platforms. So tell him we sent you. Ben, good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm peachy. Serious. All right, I'm almost peachy. Okay.
I'm from the South, so when you said that, the hair on the back of my neck went up. That is not necessarily good news.
No. Today I can do it. I got it. I can do this.
It's
Only because
right up there with bless your heart.
Oh yeah, and if we say bless your little heart, go to another zip code. Yes, we will make your ears bleed without raising our voice.
By the way, I'm pleased to know David Brown is sponsoring this episode. I met David years ago at a seminar somewhere. I frankly forget where, and probably another one or two or three after that. Great guy, and really knows his stuff. Every time something from him pops up, I like it. I frequently share it with my other people. He's one of those people you can put your trust in. And I'll tell you something else he does. If he doesn't know something, he tells you. He doesn't do the song and dance and give you some misinformation to fill the void. He knows what he knows, and he knows where his boundaries are. And I really respect him. So, David, if you're listening, thank you very much for joining us. It's appreciated, and I respect you.
I do too, and that was lovely. Thank you. Back to our topic. So very quickly, and I'm just going to kind of lay it out and then get out of your way. We've got a storm going on here, and I've got a crying dog sitting behind my ear. So if you hear what sounds like hiccups, that's not really hiccups. That's her going, oh my God. She hates this kind of weather. But we're talking today about mentorship, and you're my mentor. You have been for many, many years. And I don't think I thank you enough, but thank you. I mean, so much of what I have learned about sales and marketing and just how to be a decent person, I lay that at your knees.
Thank you very much. That's extremely kind, and coming from you, a real compliment. But you were well-formed before I met you, which is one of my attractions to you. You're sharp, feminine, great voice, all the Southern traits that we Southern men really appreciate. And then you're smart as hell. And that adds to the package.
My mom used to say when she had to describe me, because I didn't live near my family once I was out of high school, I left. And I stayed in touch, but I just didn't live there anymore. And when people say, well, what's your oldest daughter look like? And she didn't have to draw breath. Oh, she's the educated smart ass. Thanks, Mom. You love me, right?
My sister used to tell people that I was special.
And in the Deep South, we know that means that your mama mashed your soft spot too hard. So.
I wrote a cute, quick story. I'm a pretty good writer, and she was running for president of the student body at Decatur High School in the Atlanta area. And she had one of those goofy speeches written, said, "What do you think of it?" I said, "It's horrible." Um, I said, "Let me write it for you." So I wrote one. It was 1966, I guess, because uh, the opening line in the talk was 3 years ago in Dallas, Texas, 3 shots rang out and young John Kennedy fell dead. The Associated Press coined the term, the torch is passed. And that's what we're doing here today. The torch is being passed and so on. And it went on briefly and very good. It was one of the better talks I've ever written. And the girl who won either right before or right after her speech was she read Climb Every Mountain, the song, literally read off the
The
word.
lyrics?
Yeah, the read the lyrics as a speech
Oh, no.
until you find your dream and so on, then sat down. And my mother was there, and I turned to her and I said, "We got this in the bag." And Jane won with like 90% of the vote.
I bet.
So we're sitting in the back of the gymnasium, and uh, Jane comes up with one of her better-looking girlfriends, and they were 7 years younger, so that was doable. And
You
she,
did not just say
well, she was. I don't mean doable sexually, but
that.
dateable.
Yeah,
So
I know. Still.
so anyway, I'm all puffed up because it was her speech, but I wrote every word of it, and it got thunderous applause and bagged the election. And she comes up and says to this nice lady, "This is my mother, Frances," and then looks at me with disdain, "And this is my brother, Round Pound," and walks
What?
away. And I'm going. Perhaps I was a little overweight at the time. I don't know, but I was one of the great speech writers of all time. After a victory, was introduced as Round Pound, and any plans I had for dating the girl went away. I still see her on Facebook, and she's in contact with my sister and so on. And one time she appeared with her daughter, who is also quite pretty. And so I wrote to both of them. I forget what the daughter's name was, but I said, "I could have been your father if your mother had listened to reason, and my sister hadn't introduced me as Round Pound."
Oh my God. See, your family and my family, we're all the same. I mean,
Yeah,
my family didn't have any comments. We had a lot of common sense, but boy, we could get articulate quickly and not in a way that was always going to land well. So,
yeah. Sometimes clarity blows up in your face.
yes, it does. But I was the educated, smart aleck, but she called me a smart ass. Like, thank you,
Now,
Mom.
I was never called educated, but a lot of the other stuff fit in there. Well, let's talk about mentorship since you introduced it that way.
Yeah, let's do.
A terribly important process. And the way most people picture it, as do I when I hear the word, is one person learning from another person. Well, there's the old, I think it's in the Bible, that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I have had many, many mentors over the years, some of whom knew it, and some of whom still don't know it to this day. Um, I can have lunch with you and, like a vacuum, suck up all sorts of information and get a feel for how you operate and watch how you move physically and so on. So in fact, I'm going to call one of my mentors today, Merle Frazier, who was, he technically worked for me, but that was kind to say he worked for me because he was willing to. He was a top distributor in Holiday Magic Cosmetics and so on. But I always had the feeling when I was with him, I was with my father.
Oh,
And because he was somewhat older, probably 10, 12 years older, and uh, he knew a hell of a lot more than I did. He was the youngest man to form an insurance company in the United States, youngest person to ever found a savings and loan in the United States. That type of guy did that when he was in his 20s in each case, and so on. So he was a mentor, but I never called him that and never paid him. Dr. Hill was a paid mentor. First year by my boss, William Penpatrick, who brought him to my office. And I've told you all of you the story before, but brought this little old man. I say, looking back, that sounds funny because I'm about his age now. So I wonder how people think of me. But he was on a cane and he was not in great physical shape. Brought him to my office, introduced him. Started the first argument I ever had with him. I said, Dr. Hill, it's a pleasure to meet you. He said, call me Nappy. And I said, never. Uh,
Nope.
yeah, I'm 25. He's 84.
All right.
He's written Think and Grow Rich. And I never did. I still don't know to this day what the doctor was for. I think I was honorary from someplace, but I don't know that. But I said, you're my senior. You're a doctor. Nappy will never come out. I didn't even say nappy. I said, that will never come out of my mouth. I never even said it to other people referring to him until he died a couple of years later. But he was a $50,000 a year mentor. Adjust that to today's money. That's about $450,000, $500,000 that Bill Patrick paid him to be my friend. He hired me a friend and a grandfather. And so that's how we started out. At the end of the first year, nearing the first year, Dr. Hill began wanting to know if we're going to go forward. And I said, well, let me give it some thought and talk to Bill. That's what I wanted to. So I went down the hallway to Bill Patrick's office in the next day or two and said, Bill, Dr. Hill is hinting that he'd like to do another year with it. What do you think? He says, your money, totally up to you. Well, as president of the company, I knew how much money was involved. I signed the check, the $50,000 within an hour or two of meeting him the first time. So I did give it a little thought and decided to go forward. So he died 2.5 years after we started working together. I think I paid for a third year, and because he then got sick the last several months and couldn't do much of anything except talk on the phone a little bit, I think the Hill estate owes me $25,000, but I don't know who to bring it up with since he's been gone, coming up on 60 years. I'm not sure anybody wants to hear my tale of woe.
Yeah, I think the statute of limitations run out on that one.
I've decided to let it go.
Yeah. You know what I wanted to ask you, Ben, and I'm not sure I ever have, and it always crosses my mind, but we get busy on other things. Did William Penpatrick, who was your boss at Holiday Magic, did he ever tell you why he brought, because you were 25, but did he ever tell you explicitly why he brought in Dr. Hill?
No, bits and pieces, but part of it, of what he said and thought I got from Dr. Hill. I said, how did this same thing you're asking, how did this happen? He said, well, I was walking down the hall. He was there to give Bill an award as one of the 5 greatest living Americans or something, which was another $50,000, by the way. I signed both checks. Dr. Hill had a good day. Adjusted for inflation, it was almost $1 million that day.
So buying awards is nothing new.
No.
Huh.
So he said, I said in so many words, how did this happen? He said, well, I was walking down the hall, leaving the building and Bill and going home. And Bill said, and I didn't know Hill was in the building. Bill said to me, I've got a young man I want you to meet. And he's running the company, doing a great job. But I'm concerned that if he has a question that might make him look like he's in over his head or he doesn't know the answer to, and maybe he should know the answer to it, I'm concerned he won't confide in me. So I want you to be that person for him. And they agreed that he would do it, and B, anything I told him would not go back to Bill Patrick. I would be his confidential mentor, not a mentee, not unlike a priest uh, church member relationship.
Mm.
And I tested it a couple of times. I told Dr. Hill things that I knew if they got back to Bill, Bill would explode, and nothing ever till the day they were both dead. So,
Did
uh,
Dr. Hill know that you were pulling his chain?
no, I don't think so. He advised me. I gave him a plot that a group of us wanted to take over the company and blah blah blah,
Mm.
and that had happened earlier to Bill with his original founding group, and he got rid of all of them as a result. And when he would tell me the story, the veins in his neck would still pop out. So I knew
You
that
reckon?
that was the way to get to him. So
Right.
I basically told him that. And I may have told you this. I also wrote a letter to him, put it in an envelope and then put a wax seal on it from the art department and put it in his secretary's desk. Marion McGinnis was her name. And I said, Marion, if you ever hear an explosion come out of there and my name, etc., hand him this letter. And the letter said, Bill, I told Dr. Hill this, blah, 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 just to see if it would get to you. No plot is underway. It was nothing but a test. Well, I left the company a couple of years after that, 3 or 4 years, whatever it was, and and then a couple of years after that, the company went out of business. And I am confident that when they hauled Marion McGinnis's desk out of the building, in the top drawer was still that sealed envelope. It never came up. No, I could trust Dr. Hill with any information, business, personal, whatever.
And
So it
that's
was,
what you want from a mentor. You don't want to, bare your chest or your soul
yeah,
and find it on social media,
I tell
cleverly disguised. You just don't want that.
one of the things I'm asked when people are applying to be a member of my uh, mentoring dynamics program is they'll say, well, give me the names of some other people that are already with you. And I say, I always laugh. I say, I won't give you their names and I won't give them your name.
Yours, right.
If somebody needs to know whether I'm your mentor or not, you tell them, not me. It'll never come out of my mouth. So we had a lockdown, wonderful relationship. And but he was my first official mentor, other than my father, and my only paid mentor. I've had people on payroll who are mentors of mine, but that isn't what I was paying them for. That was just the bonus. So when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Put that in your bonnet, listeners, and apply it, because it doesn't have to be a famous person, doesn't have to be a paid person. It has to be somebody who knows things you don't know. The way I describe people say, well, what is a mentor to you? I said, well, let's say I'm going to go down into some deep, dark woods that are potentially dangerous, might have wild animals. I mean, back there, picture it as bad as you can. Do I want to talk to a guy in the parking lot before I go down the trail who's never been down it either? Or do I want to get 100 yards in, meet a guy coming back up the trail with maybe a couple of scratches on him and his clothing torn, and because he's been down to the end of the trail and back? Who do I want to talk to?
Well, that's why
That's
people hire Sherpas to get them up and down mountains.
right. Mount Everest, when some rich person scales it, good friend of mine is about to do that, by the way, for the 10th time or something.
Or
The when that when they reach the top and the headlines are, Dr. So and so reached the top and summited and so on, standing beside him is a Sherpa who's probably done it 100 times or more. But they don't get written up because A, they weren't famous to start with, and B, it's their job. Dr. Hill didn't run around saying I'm Ben Gay's mentor. He just lent me his wisdom. He'd been down the trail and back, and he had worked with some of the most famous, successful people of our era: Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Charles Schwab, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when he said, Ben, here's what you might want to think about doing, he'd been at it. I repeat, he was 84 when I met him, and he was telling me things that were told to him by people who were gone. They were over 100 now or something. He was the guy coming back up the trail with the scratches on his face and so on. He had been there. He had done it, or he knew people who had, and he took careful notes. So that's the type of mentor you're looking for. One of the great things I have to offer people. I've led an interesting life. Attitude coach for the astronauts. Worked in and around prisons for 11 years. Sat in Charlie Manson's cell. Have known in my era some of the most successful people on the planet, and several billionaires or close personal friends. So when somebody says, what do you have to offer me? What among the things I now say, having just had a birthday, is I'm 83, and I just look at them. Been there, done that, took notes. Know the people who've been there, done that, and I took notes from them. So you need to find somebody who's had the experience, is willing to share it with you on a confidential basis. And I know you work with people, and you could say the exact same thing. That's the thing that all of my members, clients, that's the thing they have going for them. And the other thing, there's several other things, but another thing that's really crucial in a mentor mentee relationship is honesty. I tell them up front, we always have a get acquainted. Well, first of all, we have a call before they fill out the application and sign up. Then we have a free get acquainted call where I'm making furious notes to see, what am I dealing with? As Dr. Hill always used to say at the beginning of a meeting, then what exactly are we trying to achieve? It's before we tie up 3 hours talking about nothing. Why are we here? What are we going to try and accomplish? And he would always say, exactly. And he didn't want weak generalities. So I say to my people, I want you to tell me the absolute truth. You ask me a question, I will tell you the absolute truth. I operate on what's called a straight basis. I'll be straight with you, you be straight with me. And if I catch you lying, we're probably done, because I don't enjoy wasting. I got into the coaching, mentoring business. I've been in it for many years, unofficially. And one day Gigi said to me, after I got off an hour or two long call with somebody, she said, why don't you charge for that? You spend a lot of time helping other people. And I said, well, I enjoy doing it. She said, I'm sure you do. The question was, why don't you charge for that? You're always telling me that something for nothing is worth nothing. Some of these conversations I've heard over and over and over again with the same person. So they're obviously not taking action on what you said, or you wouldn't be having that conversation again. So I said, that's a good idea. So I started charging immediately, and told everybody who called in for their normal free consultation, there's been a little shift in plans. This has become a business. About half of them started paying. The other half said, well, let me think about that. That's good. And they drifted away. If they had to pay, they weren't willing to have the conversations. And the half that stayed and paid, a huge percentage of them began actually taking action.
Well, they took it seriously because it was no longer just a conversation.
Yeah. They began taking it seriously and taking action on it. So it cut my time on the phone with people at the time in half, gave me a new source of income. And it's not just a new source from the consultations, it's a new source uh, in that I get first to look at things. When somebody has a new idea or a new idea is run by them, if they're my client, they tend to call me. So if I want to get in on something, I get first look or among the very first looks. So that's a whole separate stream of income and rewards in that I get in on things that I otherwise would have never even heard about. So it's been a godsend for me, and I really enjoy it. I think I told you years ago, for some reason, I took the Cooter preference test, and I probably took it to see if we were going to use it in our recruiting or training or something. But anyway, I took it, mailed it in back in those days, pretty much forgot about it. And then back came a thing with the results. And it went on for pages. But what it boiled down to was I should be a social worker or a minister. And I laughed because I'm, among other things, money oriented, and those two don't pay well usually. And I was talking to my mother one day, and I said, "Mommy, I can't believe this. I took this Cooter preference test. Said I should be a social worker or a minister." And I laughed, and there was dead silence from the end. She said, "That's what you've been doing for years. You just figured out a way to get paid."
She's right.
Yeah, well, probably
The women
so.
around you are very intelligent.
I've noticed that.
I'm just going to point that out one more time.
I'm surprised you were able to say that without spitting up in the back of your mouth,
Yeah,
but
but I did laugh. So I'm still
so
laughing.
that's one of the great things in my life. It's a little off subject. I was raised by a strong woman, my mother. One of my grandmothers was a strong woman and a great influence on me. My sister was a strong person, although she was 7 years younger than I am. Many times she acted like a parent because she was not involved in the adulation and all that stuff. So she could take me aside and say, "You're full of crap." I said, "Oh, thank you, Jane."
Siblings do that.
Yeah,
You ought to
thank
hear
you,
some
Jane.
of the way my siblings would talk to me. I'm like, "What? But but I'm perfect, dang it. Come on now."
Yeah, don't you recognize
Yeah, they
genius
never
when you
did.
see it?
No.
And then I went into Macy's. Most of the executives in Macy's, not when I was there, not chairman of the board and so on, but the people who were doing the work, the buyers, the vast majority of them were strong women. The women on the people on the sales floor, until you got into the furniture department for some odd reason. The people on the sales floor, all with way more experience, all old enough to be my mother or grandmother or what have you. They were women. So I've grown up, or people say, "How do you work with women?" I said, "I'm carefully." you know, I, I say, "Yes, ma'am," and listen carefully because I've learned so much from them, and they've been very, very kind to me. I was reviewing an old apartment building in Atlanta that we used to live in when we first started out, called the Ponce. The official name is Ponce de Leon Apartments, but nobody knows that. It's known as the Ponce. And in there, the one who talked me into moving into it and getting a small apartment, starting out as newlyweds, my first wife and I, was a lady named Catherine Hadsell. She was the person who really ran the housewares department. We had a buyer, Cy Fisher. We had two assistant buyers, Cliff Beeks and me. And then we had Catherine Hadsell, who ran everything. And we all said, "Yes, ma'am," and "No, ma'am." The first day I met her, I walked in the office and I said, "You must be Catherine Hadsell. I'm Ben Gay. I guess I'm one of your new bosses." And she said, "Sit down," in that tone where you sit down immediately.
Clenching your knees.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "I eat assistant buyers for lunch. You will do what I tell you to do." And then,
Yes, ma'am.
yeah, and then we can, after we get that under control, we can pretend like you're my boss. I said, got it. And Catherine Hadsel continued to run the housewares, small appliances, et cetera, like a dictator. And I loved her so much, I moved into the Ponce just to be near after hours.
Oh,
Strong, and her husband, Johnny Hadsel, strong women have been all over my life, and they've been mentors, although I didn't use the term back then. So in my mentor program, we call it Mentoring Dynamics, we had started the personal development business, the modern personal development business, where Est and the Forum and SciWorld, and they all came from this little starting thing called Leadership Dynamics Institute, which was my creation, Mind Dynamics Institute, which was sort of the woo-woo, go down to your subconscious level thing, came from Jose Silva, who brought that into Holiday Magic, and that was part of our seminar division. Sales Dynamics, a sales training company, separate from the training you got for just being there, and so on. And then Dr. Hill and I had started working on Mentoring Dynamics. We decided on the name. People were going to come to California, spend a week or 10 days with Dr. Hill, being certified, and me and Bill Patrick being certified mentors of Dr. Napoleon Hill, and go forth and teach their classes like we did in the other three seminar divisions. And it was going to be remarkable. And then he died on me. And so I put the name aside. It's always been in my diary, on the front page, on the back page, get around to this someday. And here we are, uh, almost 60 years since he died. And a few years ago, I resurrected the name Mentoring Dynamics, and now do for others what Dr. Hill did for me, which was be older, wiser, totally honest with them, demand total honesty in return, and tell them what lies down the trail that they're going down and doing poorly at, or about to go down, or whatever. And then people have asked me, well, did he give you a manual or something? I said, no. He came and sat in my office, was available by phone 24 hours a day. And then when in California, I had a big conference. My office used to be the conference room. So I had a big conference table. He sat at the end of the conference table to my left. That was his chair. No one else ever sat in it, even when he wasn't in town, which was most of the time. And he just sat there writing. Looking back, he probably wrote a couple of his books there, and at the old typewriter I bought for him and put up at the house in Dr. Hill's bedroom. And he would just listen. He could be in any meeting he wanted. He never had to ask. He just walked in, sat down, or didn't get up when somebody came in. I don't care who it was. He didn't have to excuse himself. And then he would listen carefully. And I think I told you he wouldn't say anything to me that was criticism or even a serious question in front of others. But when the last person left, if it was a big meeting or just one person, and the door clicked, from my peripheral vision, I could see if we were about to have a session. If he kept his head down and kept writing, what he listened to must have gone pretty well. If he put his pen down and his head came up, I used to think, uh-oh. And it wasn't all tough or bad news or anything, but it was always a correction of some sort, and a little attitude adjustment of some sort. So that's the way I work with my people. I can do, and like you're a great example of this, Denise. Podcasts are not dependent, in my humble opinion, on the guest. They're dependent on the host or hostess or whatever you call it, the leader of the thing, because you determine the pace, the direction. There are probably people you've disconnected. I know I do that. I always claim that we must have had some glitch in the phone. I just hit disconnect, and for an hour or two, everything goes to voicemail. I don't mean I do that on podcasts, but I would. And I do that frequently in conversations that I just don't want to be part of anymore. So you control in your podcast, you control the quality of it by the questions you ask, when you inject yourself, who you have on to start with, your relationship with them, and so on. It's the same with a mentor-mentee relationship. I can't help a person if they lie to me. I take extensive notes, so don't tell me on our fifth meeting on page 17 uh, something different than what you told me in our first meeting on page 1. I had a guy, and by the way, into the disconnect thing, I had a guy trying to become a client, and he called numerous times, filled out the registration, got the letter that explains everything, and then I discovered that he was very hard to work with. Earlier in the green room today, you were telling me about somebody, you didn't give me his name, but you were telling me about somebody who's very difficult to work with. And I smiled because that falls into the category of this person. He finally said to me, Mr. Gay, why can't I be a client? And I said, because I don't like you.
I've done the same. I know I've shared this with you many years. This is why I always do a pre-interview. You cannot come on my show. I don't care who you are. And I've had some pretty big names say, well, I don't have time. Well, that's nice. And I will LMA clamp at them to death. Well, that's good. You just have a nice day now, you hear? I just don't talk to them again. I have to have a pre-existing conversation with you to find out if I know you, I trust what you're telling me, and if we're going to have any kind of rapport at all. So
Right.
a pre-interview is mandatory, but and I'll tell you how that happened years ago, many, many years ago. This thing's going to be my podcast will be 18 years old pretty soon. And I've learned a lot doing it. But this one woman, God bless her, she was just determined that I was her billboard. That was it. And no matter what I would ask her or how I would try to lead her away from, well, if you'll just go to my website. And this was back in the day when you had to go www.
Yeah.
Yeah. And finally, I'd had a belly full of it. She was not going to follow my lead. She was going to, use me as my microphone was hers, apparently. And I said, no. And I hung up on her. And I've only had to do that once in all the years that I've had this podcast. She bugged the bejeebers out of me. Well, Denise, I can come back. No, ma'am. No, I can come back. No, ma'am. And Ben, you know me. If I say no, I'll say it twice. That's it. There's no third time. No meant no. And she kept emailing me and just getting more and more hysterical. And finally, I picked up the phone and I called her. She said, well, I just don't understand why I can't come back and be your guest. And again, when I get real Southern and real quiet, leave. And I said exactly what you just said. I said, because I don't like you.
Yeah.
And that was the end of that. She finally got it. But, and going back to a little bit more what you said just a minute ago, I will always, because, I've spent time in the green room. I've got the Zoom where I already did the pre-interview. So I know you. I've got your book. We've stayed in touch. I know what I'm doing. You know what you're doing. But Ben, you're going to love this. I always call my guests right after, unless they're in Amsterdam, which happens, or London, which happened just recently. And I will hear this time and time again. It's like, oh my God, Denise, I felt like I rambled. My stock response is, and I'll keep on saying it, I'm in charge of the microphone.
No.
If I'm fascinated, so is my audience. Trust me on this.
If you were rambling too much, the conversation would have come to an end.
Yeah. I would have said, hold on, let's talk about something, because I'm not known for tact or diplomacy, but it's just, and I thank you for what you said about my podcast, because I do choose my guests very carefully. And you've heard me say this on this show and on my other show. My guests are in so many ways my mentors. I've got their books. I've read their books. I've done business with some of them. I've referred them to other people. It's all built on trust.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I've known you long enough to know you are trustworthy. As you know, whenever I see something from you that I want to share with others and so on, I say, she knows more about podcasting and success, etc., than anyone I know. And
Oh,
so if you're even thinking about getting in this business or this field, first talk to her.
yeah.
You can be their Napoleon Hills. You've been 17 and a half years. You've been down and back on the trail numerous times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
And I can't even tell you how many times I've fallen flat on my face and went, crap, that hurt. So it
and
does.
and the business has evolved while you were doing that, how to promote it, how to conduct it, etc. So, and not only do you know what went on, and that gives you a tremendous background. I was head of the largest multi-level marketing direct sales firm in the world. We had in 20 different countries, in 5 different major product lines. We had one time, I don't know if we ever went higher or not, but one time somebody came in, one of the computer people, and said, "Do you know we have," and they gave me a number. It was over 1 million salespeople working for us uh,
Worldwide.
in the 20 countries and 5 different
Wow.
things. So um, there's not, if somebody starts telling me something about selling, like you with podcasting, somebody starts telling me about selling, about 30 seconds deep in the conversation, I know if they know. It's like Dr. Hill used to say, he was talking about Think and Grow Rich. He said, best sell. I was giving him a compliment one time. I said, how's it feel to have written one of the best selling books of all time? They said it used to be second only to the Bible. True or not, I don't know, but that's what they said. And he said, best selling, least read. Everybody in business and sales has, not everybody, but lots of people have Think and Grow Rich, usually laying on a coffee table so everybody can see that they've read it. But if you pick up the back, the binding has never been broken.
Right.
It's just there to impress other people. And he said in 2, 3 minutes, he knew whether they'd read it or not. He said, I know if they haven't ever read it instantly almost. And then I can tell those who scanned it, picked up a couple of catchphrases, whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe it can achieve, for instance. And then we probe a little deeper and we know that that's all they read, or they heard it from somebody else and they're confident it's in the book somewhere.
And it may
So,
not be. It may be in another one of his books, which I've caught before.
yeah, entirely possible. It's like people saying, as it says in the Bible, and then they quote something Socrates said. So they just figure, thick as that Bible is that I've never opened, it must be in there somewhere. So the relationship with a good mentor is based on honesty, openness, confidentiality, and several other elements. I'm sure if I thought about it for a few moments. And it can be, if you listen, take notes, and absorb, can be your most valuable things. And an offshoot of that is the mastermind groups. Dr. It's not, he didn't create it, but he coined the term and made it popular. I told you this story, but one time he was there, the board of directors was there, or the head of every department or whatever, a big group of people, all the chairs at the desk filled, people standing. And they left, and one guy doubled back because he had something private he had to say. And the private thing was bitching about somebody else on the team. And when he left, I said to Dr. Hill, um, I hear that all day long. This person doesn't like this person. The legal department, they fight with everybody. No one likes the legal department because they say no. I said, well, they
Or the
said,
sales department. Every company hates sales, hates them.
yeah, because they're
And the IT department, they're natural enemies.
overpaid and underworked is the attitude towards sales. and the legal department says no. Uh, I won't name the company, although most people would know it anyway. But a person I know was calling on a good-sized company in this area, and somewhere in the conversation, he needed to talk to the HR people about human. What does that stand for? Human relations or
Human resources, but that
human? Yeah,
I
human.
don't think anybody really believes that these days.
He said to the head of the company, "What do you call your HR department?" And the guy said, "The bitch downstairs."
Oh, ow.
Apparently, she was not real popular. And she started out unpopular because she started out as head of HR. They're never liked. So I said to Dr. Hill, all day long, person comes in and complains about all the others. They leave. Somebody comes in and complains about them. He said, because he always stayed at our house when he was in town, he said, have you had him up to the house? I said, well, a couple of them because they're personal friends, but not as a group. He said, let's do that. Let's have them up. Let's was the term for, he considered that his house. So,
And his Learjet.
yeah,
Let's not forget
yeah,
that.
yeah. Let's have them up. So I did. We had them up. We had a big room with a full bar in it and a pool table and everything. It was how I didn't build the house. I just bought it, but it was built for entertaining. Got them all up. Several of them had a little too much to drink, but they all had a good time and they got to know each other on a personal basis. The next day, I had a mastermind group. I hadn't called it that. The board, the staff. I had a mastermind group built. All I did was pour drinks. I wasn't drinking in those days at all. So I made it, which is a secret, by the way, of success. Don't drink and be the bartender.
And don't drink in front of your boss.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about what they will tell you,
Ah.
thinking you're drinking too.
Oh, gotcha.
it's, it's wonderful. I used to love the 4th of July employees' picnics. Somebody would come up, always the husband of somebody who worked for us, and usually after their 5th or 6th beer, and say, "You know what the wife and I think about you?" And I, "No, tell me,
Tell me.
please tell me." So anyway, I had a mastermind group the next morning. They started drifting in. Hey, how are you? Hi, Dorothy. How are you? People hadn't spoken to each other unless they had to.
Well, now
And
they viewed each other as humans
that's right.
instead of just, people that they have to hate because they're on the wrong floor or they're in another, department.
Hmm.
Yeah, they're just natural enemies. But once you break that down into human interaction, magic can happen.
Right. And I turned each one of them and individually and cumulatively into mentors.
Mm,
They knew cumulatively much more than I knew, obviously. Most of them, uh, individually, one-on-one, were as smart or smarter than I am or was at the time. And all of a sudden, they were opening up to me. They weren't afraid of me anymore.
all
I
right.
was, I was Ben. We've been to their house. We know their dog. We know their 2 Siamese cats, etc. So I turned them into mentors, and they were paid very well, but they weren't paid to be a mentor. They were paid to do their job. And the bonus was they became mastermind people and mentors. Let me tell you how my program works. It's mentoring dynamics. We pretty much discuss how it works. I don't have charts and graphs and so on. I build relationships with people and tell them what they need to know. There's an initial retainer uh, that goes on their account of $2,950, and that pays for or paid for uh, 10 hours of uh, one-on-one Zooms, uh, telephone calls, whatever, and we bill by the minute. In other words, if you have a quick question, if one of them has a quick question, and it's a yes or no, it probably would cost them $1. if I remember to write it down and take it off their ledger. So they control how rapidly they go through their 10 hours, their 29.50. Don't call, nothing comes off. Call and tie me up for 10 hours one day. It's time to refresh the retainer.
Mm-hmm.
I have one guy who's been working on his initial retainer. If I'd have to get out his chart, but for over 5 years, because he's one of those yes or no people. He's a good thinker, knows his business, and then if he has any doubt, when he gets ready to make a decision, he'll call me, and we'll have a 2, 3, 4, 5 minute call. And he said to me not too long ago, "Do I owe you any more money?" I said, "No, you've still got quite a bit of time on the books." He said, "But it's been 5 years." I said, "You're the most clever user of a retainer I've ever known. And here's the bonus."
He doesn't waste time.
Exactly. Here's the bonus. We are testing, because sometimes I'm just getting involved in their business and I'm sort of like an honorary member of the board of directors in many cases. We're getting in and their 10 hours is up. Well, usually the reward is so substantial, they just pay some more. But I've heard a little tone of disappointment. Oh, the 10 hours is already up.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So on a test basis to see if sales go up and quality improves, the 29.50 will cover 20 hours of consultation, mentoring, etc. Still comes off in the same manner. They still control how fast it comes off, when it comes off, etc. But they're going to get, at no additional cost, 20 hours. After a month or two, I have it in my daily planner. I'm going to take a look at it and see if that was a good idea. For now, it is the idea. $2,950 gets you 20 hours of my time. You might have me write a direct sales letter in that time. It might be conversations, however you want to use it. Somebody said, "Well, what if I don't go through it?" I said, "I'll come out to the house and play with the dog." You know, whatever you want. So if any of our listeners are interested in that, what they need to do is just shoot me an email to B as in Ben, F as in Frank, G as in gay, the number 3, not Roman numeral, 3, BFG3 at DirectCon, short for Direct Connect, DirectCon as in November, .net, N-E-T, BFG3 at directcon.net. And all you have to put in the subject line, don't need a whole long letter at this point, is coaching/mentoring or mentoring/coaching. Just tell me there's what the email's about, so I'll open it. In return,
Yeah.
I'll send you a letter by email that explains exactly what I just explained to you and a little more detail, and application registration form to fill out. Not everybody who applies gets in. During the warm-up call, I may decide this isn't a good match for either one of us, but most people do if they're willing to invest money in themselves. Generally speaking, they're pretty neat, success-oriented people. And so if you get in, then we have a 1-hour get-acquainted call that does not come off your ledger. It's just feeling each other out, me making a lot of notes, getting your family situation. I'm not a marriage counselor or a personal family counselor. However, I don't think there's anybody I work with where that doesn't spill over into the equation. Good or bad marital relationships, problems with the kids or what have you. And again, I'm 84. I've raised 4 kids officially and hundreds more unofficially at People Builders at San Quentin and People Builders at Lompoc Federal Penitentiary. I've been down the trail. I got my scratches. I got my Band-Aids. My clothes have been ripped in many places. And
You're the Sherpa.
I'm
You
the
don't need a
Sherpa.
Sherpa. You are it.
I will be happy to share those experiences with them. So that's how that works. And I'm currently looking for a few people. One, I had a death and a retirement, so I'd opened up 2 spots. And then I've reorganized my schedule where I can do a few more. I used to cap it at 30, and we're going to stay within striking distance of that, but 30, 35, it sort of depends on who they are. So if you'd like and the other thing is, we'll send you the letter, we'll send you the registration form, etc. If you want to fill it out and send it back, do that. If you don't, no one's going to call you. We're not going to email you. We're not going to, bug you with, why haven't you signed up? Why haven't you signed up? When I hit send, the ball is in your court. If you don't respond to that, we just had our last contact.
And see, I like that because I hate to be nagged at. I mean, I
Yep.
can nag. I've been married. I know how to nag. I have a diploma in it, but I think most women do. But this happens in LinkedIn all the time. I'll get, some kind of a quick note on LinkedIn or, they want to connect and instantly they've already written it. We can help you with this. Like, buy me a cup of coffee, you idiot. Don't don't kn I don't know you. You're not gonna do anything for me, and I'll block them. I get very irritated by that. So I like your approach a lot. My attitude is, if they're interested and they understand what you bring to the table and what they can gain, they're going to take action. If they don't, they're not ready.
Yeah. Or not interested. As
Not
somebody,
interested, right?
Tom Hopkins or somebody coined it. I forget who it was. I'd give him credit if I knew. Some will, some won't. Next.
Exactly. That's
I,
exactly right.
I don't even, I used to, I don't even keep a list of who I sent the stuff to. I thought, well, I'm not going to follow up. I'm not going to send them another email. I'm not going to phone them. It's not important who I sent it to. If they're interested, I will get payment and a completed registration form. And short of that, we don't have anything to talk about. So that's my contribution for the day. And it was a joy, as always, talking to you.
Thank you. And I was taking notes frantically while you were talking, and this is kind of my summation. In this conversation, we were digging into what makes mentorship succeed. And this is what I wrote down, Ben, because I believe it. A true mentorship requires more than good intentions. It's built on trust, respect, and accountability on both sides. The mentor, you, must be willing to invest time and share hard won knowledge, while the mentee, me, must be open, teachable. I had trouble writing that one down and willing to act on guidance. I did. I don't know that I'm all that teachable, but I try. But without that balance, the relationship is just not going to deliver the results that either of you want.
Right. A total waste of time. And then you come to resent it. Oh my God, I've got to talk to so and so at 1 o'clock. I want to look forward to the calls because we're making progress together.
Exactly. Oh, last week, we are running out of time. Last week we touched briefly on W. Clement Stone, and we were going to go back to that. But I've got a note that we can go back to that next week. And I want our audience to know that, listen, the Closers books, if you want to dive deeper into Ben's teachings, and trust me on this, you do, you don't need to stop at the podcast. His entire catalog of books, including the Closer Series 1 and 2, which is what we're working on number 2 most of the time, and many other powerful works that are authored by him and select colleagues. I will be one of those colleagues pretty soon, is available directly through him. So every book arrives with free shipping and it's personally signed by Ben if they're his books. And this makes each copy not only a resource, but a keepsake. You gotta see mine. My poor Closers Part 2, it's torn up. It's coming apart. I don't know if I've got enough tape in the house to repair it. But this makes each copy just not a resource, but carrying the legacy of one of the most respected voices in sales, excuse me, and mentorship. So here's what I've got to say at the end of the show. If you're serious about learning from the best, I encourage you strongly to explore his collection. It's a library of wisdom that captures decades of experience, insight, and timeless principles, not only from Ben, but from the legendary mentors and peers who influenced him along the way. So, Ben, I will see you next Wednesday.
Looking forward to it already.
Me too. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.